Hello there, Goody124 here. Today I'm doing a bit of a reel where I showcase all the out of bounds glitches I have encountered when testing games. Okay, the very first game I'll be showcasing an out of bounds glitch is Another Realm Cursed Friends. This was a prototype I tested, and the game took a lot of inspiration from Persona, which you could see in a lot of the mechanics it had, like the squad-based, turn-based combat. The way you got outside the map in this game is through the level geometry, as the player could sometimes move up certain parts of level geometry, like slopes. And you could keep on doing this until you eventually got outside the map, like I did. The second game I'm going to be talking about is Metavoidal, which was a 2D roguelite game. Furthermore, the game was pretty interesting because the themes it had were like Lovecraftian, but it also had like musical theme as well, because the main character had like drumsticks as a weapon, and also the whole plot of it is you're like a musical audition, and the musical audition was like a lure to lure like hosts for this Lovecraftian presence. Okay, now let's talk about the actual out of bounds glitch I discovered while playing this. The level had like water around like the playable area, which would stop you from obviously getting out of bounds, because if you like jumped into it, you would start to die. However, if you were to spam the roll, you would basically be able to move across it. And although there may be times you might take a little bit of damage, you could effectively do this until you reach the very outside of the map. Furthermore, you can actually use this glitch to end the level by getting to the end raft you have to use to exit, without having to go through the actual real level itself. The third game I'm going to be talking about is Aquametsis. This was a very cool first-person shooter where you were the leader of this mercenary organisation, where you send mercenaries to do these jobs for you. Moreover, you would actually play these mercenaries yourself in a first-person view, and you'd be able to equip like weapons on them before the actual mission. The game also had really cool mechanics. For example, you could destroy things like doors, glass, and other parts of the environment. Also, another very important mechanic the game had is how you'd build facilities for your organisation and do research for weapons and such, which is very inspired by XCOM. Okay, now let's look at this game's out-of-bounds glitch. In Aquametsis, there are ladder mechanics. When a player interacts with a ladder, they'll be brought towards it so they can climb it. However, I discovered some weird hijinks with this. At one of the spawn points in Aquametsis, which has a submarine, there is a ladder and a platform above it. If you were to jump off the submarine onto the inside part of the ladder, it will cause the climbing to break and pull you underneath the water, and if you let go, you will fall to your death. Alright then, the next game we'll be talking about is Protos Magos. This was also a first-person shooter, but this was definitely more like a boomer shooter like Quake. And it had a really cool mechanic where the game's weapons were spells, and these spells had slots next to them where you could put other spells in them slots, and it would allow you to make the spells you're using different. Like making an explosive spell into like an explosive shotgun spell by combining it with a shotgun spell. With Protos Magos, I got a triple threat of bugs to show you. The first out-of-bounds glitch is actually to your left as soon as you exit the starting rooms. To be more precise, it is a cave where you will find a secret spell. And this cave has like an open ledge you can jump off, but usually what would happen is you'd hit a trigger that would then send you back up. However, I managed to get to a part on this terrain that had no trigger to stop me from just falling straight through the map. The second out-of-bounds glitch in Protos Magos involved the use of abusing pickup mechanics. You could pick up barrels in Protos Magos, but by spamming interaction on them, can cause the barrels to float, be collidable, and be transparent, which allowed me to climb these battlements I shouldn't really have been on. After that, I jumped off the battlements and found myself in some quite nice out-of-bounds terrain, so I explored it. The final out-of-bounds glitch in Protos Magos was quite bizarre. This bug involved a puzzle in the second level. where there is a platform and a button that will make the platform go down, and if whatever's on the button is moved or destroyed, the platform will go back up again. There happens to be a window near this platform, and if you were to put, let's say, a barrel on the button, shoot the barrel, and then jump through the window, there is no collider to stop you from going through the window, so you'll end up out of bounds. I thought this out of bounds glitch was cool because it let me see the outside of an interior map, which is quite interesting, though I do think it's kind of baffling that I could get through the window in the first place. As we're talking about boomer shooters, might as well talk about Mayhem as well, because that is also a very boomer shooter-like game. However, unlike Protos Magos, which had levels, this one was wave-based, where you use your shotgun and bazooka to smite them monsters. Speaking of the out-of-bounds glitch in this game, I actually managed to get out of bounds in 2 different ways. The first time I did it, I jumped on an enemy's head as like a boost to help boost me up so I can jump on a piece of level geometry to level geometry so then I can actually then just jump out the map. The second out of bounds glitch was after they updated the game to prevent you from actually jumping on enemies' heads. But instead, I just found a part of a wall, I just climbed on that. I jumped from this wall onto a pillar and then over this fence into an out of bounds area. And I actually explored the area, which seems to be like a level in the making, which is pretty cool, as there was like collectibles, which you would usually collect when playing the game. And I thought that was pretty cool how I managed to get into an area like this. The next game I'm going to be talking about is Project Utgardr, which is a first-person game where you're in these mountains and you got to use parkour to get around the level. The out-of-bounds glitch in this game is very similar to the one in Protos Magos. There's an area of the map that doesn't have a proper collision so you can just fall straight through. That's what happened to me in this. Normally when you fall you are taken back to a checkpoint. However, I found a spot that is lower than like the main terrain that you got to jump down to get to, and if you were to jump off from that point, you would not be brought back up, but you would instead fall to your doom endlessly. The final game with an out-of-bounds glitch I'm going to be talking about is Obey the Architects, which was a cool first-person puzzle game that had an interesting combat mechanic using a glove, which you could use to fling soldiers, especially into traps. Okay, now let's look at the out-of-bounds glitches in Obey the Architects. There are actually 3 of them, but I'll leave the best one to last. All these glitches occur at the last area in the game. The very first one is doable as soon as you enter this area of the waterfall. Instead of going forward like the game wants you to, go back and you find some terrain where you can go over and find a cable. All you gotta do then is just crawl underneath there, and from something so simple, you are now out of bounds. The second bug to get out of bounds will shock a lot of people trying to do the puzzle, as it is very easy to do accidentally, as there is a floor here that has no collision so you can just fall straight through it. Okay, now my final and favourite out-of-bounds glitch. It is my favourite as the method you use to do it is prop flying. At the end of the game, there is a gate you will go through and there will be a cutscene trigger after it, so you won't be able to go any further than that. However, you can prop fly above this gate and then jump down to the left. Once you have done that, you will be past that final cutscene trigger, which means you'll be able to have a wander around in an area that's actually from an earlier demo. I know this is from an earlier demo because the developer told me about this when I showed them this bug. I also find it quite interesting how this area still has enemies in it you can actually fight, despite being a part of the level you're not supposed to go to. Alright then, so I'm pretty much done with this video now. From having a nice wander around outside the map, to falling through the floor, to an eternal demise. This has been Goody124, showcasing all my favourite out-of-bounds glitches I have found. Goodbye.